Hi, those who are preparing for NEET MDS 2022, we are launching a new batch with new schedules starting from November 29th with dental and ortho. So you can drop a mail at proudtobedentist@gmail.com for more details, or you can check our website ptbdacademy.com. Hi, hope you guys are all doing good. So in this series of paper discussion videos, let's try to cover various topics which are asked in the recently concluded INSF Jan 2021 session based on keywords which you all provided. So the objective of this session is to make sure that we're trying to cover topics which are relevant to the questions asked in the entrance, and secondly, most importantly, those who are preparing for the upcoming entrances. I really hope that these paper discussion videos will be of enormous help. So with these objectives in mind, let's proceed with our paper discussion videos. I hope you guys are all ready. So I'll be giving you a keynote presentation and simultaneously we'll be reviewing additional literature relevant to those topics or questions. So let's start our paper discussion videos with our first question on Kurt's premolar classification. So Morton Kurtz, way back in 1992, has classified malocclusion based on a region of premolars into three classes: premolar class 1, class 2, and class 3. So premolar class 1, most anterior upper premolar, as you can see in the illustration, fits exactly into the embrasure created by distal contact of the most anterior lower premolar. And this represents perfect interdigitation, and the value that is assigned is 0 mm in this case, class 1, right? And in case of premolar class 2, the most anterior upper premolar is occluding mesial of embrasure. This is very, very important. So the upper premolar, the most anterior upper premolar, that is the first premolar, occludes mesial of embrasure, which is created by distal contact of most anterior lower premolar. And whatever value you obtain compared to class 1, whether it's 2 mm or 3 mm or 4 mm, we assign positive sign. So plus 4 mm or plus 3 mm. Whereas premolar class 3, so it's quite obvious. The most anterior upper premolar is occluding distal to embrasure, created by distal contact of most anterior lower premolar. And whatever value obtained, that is, it can be 2 mm or 3 mm, you assign a negative sign. Isn't that obvious? So that's the classification of malocclusion based on premolars orientation given by Morton Kurtz way back in 1992. In the illustration which you find now, this particular illustration represents premolar class 1. Perfect interdigitation between the premolars, between the most anterior upper premolar and the embrasure created by distal contact of the most anterior lower premolar. I hope it's clear. Now let's move on to our next question or next topic, muscles that open mouth. Again, I think it's an image-based question. So as you can see, we have different muscles, major muscles and secondary muscles, which play an important role in altering the masticatory status. So muscles of mastication, as you can see in this particular illustration, representing various direction of movements. So muscles of mastication producing movements of TMJ. The arrows in this particular illustration indicate the direction of their actions, and the chief muscles of mastication are labeled in bold. As you can see, masseter, medial pterygoid, lateral pterygoid, and temporalis. Now, let me review some literature in regard to these muscles of mastication. So, temporalis, fan-shaped, consider this very, very important. So audition, insertion, and nerve supply, already dealt with them in early classes. We'll just go through their actions. So temporalis, which is fan-shaped, it elevates the mandible, right? So elevation of mandible by anterior and middle fibers, and retraction of mandible by posterior fibers in case of temporalis. Masseter, quadrilateral in shape. So elevation of mandible to occlude the teeth in case of forceful bite, as evident in this illustration, represented by arrows. And lateral pterygoid, which is short, thick, conical. There is depression of mandible by pulling the neck of mandible forward, and also there is protraction, right? Opposite to that of retraction. And medial pterygoid, again quadrilateral in shape, the action is elevation of mandible and protraction. So review this information and see if this is useful for you in answering the question or any relevant question asked in the entrance, right? As you can see in this table, various muscles, their origin, insertion, nerve supply, and most importantly, the actions. Okay, and if you need any additional information, do let me know. We'll update the description part of the video, or we'll add a comment just beneath this video for convenience of your reference. Okay, now let's move on to our next question. COVID lung pathology. So there seems to be a question on the same. So COVID lung pathology. So they've given numerous options. So there are several keywords. Let me review some literature, and I really hope that this will be useful for you in answering this question. Also in finding out what exactly happens to lungs in case of COVID-19. So SARS-CoV-2, as you guys are aware of, name of the virus, was first isolated from a 41-year-old patient bronchoalveolar lavage fluid in December 2019 in China. So this is all past, and this potentially fatal disease was named COVID-19. The virus primarily targets the lung epithelial cells, initiating a cytokine storm and causing lung injury by mediating an immunopathological response. And finally, there is diffuse or massive alveolar damage, that is DAD, diffuse alveolar damage, and also there can be acute respiratory distress syndrome. So SARS-CoV-2 related histopathological changes are acute fibrinous pneumonia, organizing pneumonia, and diffuse alveolar damage, as we have just discussed. And this is based on information given in the PubMed indexed article. If you need any additional information, as I said, do let me know in the comments below. I'll update relevant information in the description part of the video accordingly. And also there seems to be a question on periostat. So this is something which we had discussed a number of times. So for sake of completing this discussion, let me review some important relevant information regarding periostat. So periostat, sub-antimicrobial dose doxycycline, STD. So it's a 20 milligram dose of doxycycline, periostat, that is approved and indicated as an adjunct to SRP in treatment of chronic periodontitis, along with scaling and root planing. As the name itself indicates, periostat. So let's assume that it is stopping chronic periodontitis. So it is taken twice daily for 3 months up to a maximum of 9 months of continuous dosing. So patient compliance is definitely a challenge. The 20 milligram dose exerts its therapeutic effect by enzyme, cytokine, and osteoclast inhibition rather than by antibiotic effects. So this is something which is very important and very interesting. So research studies have found no detectable antimicrobial effect on oral flora or the bacterial flora in other regions of body, and have identified clinical benefit when used as an adjunct to SRP. So consider this very, very important, right? I hope it's clear. Now let's move on to the next question. Active site. Also there seems to be a question on the same. So what is this active site? So active site is one of the first local drug delivery products which was available previously. So it is tetracycline hydrochloride periodontal fibers. So each fiber contains 12.7 milligrams of tetracycline, and it has extended release. So you can see how it's being used to place it in the pocket for sake of delivering tetracycline. So it's one of the first local drug delivery products that was available previously, right? And also each fiber contains around 12.1 milligrams of tetracycline. Consider this composition very, very important. Okay, now let's move on to our next question. So root canal configuration, there seems to be a question on the same. Vortices and veins, this we discussed a number of times in our study club, e-classes, and so on. So let's review some information in regard to the same briefly. So vortices classification and veins classification, what you're finding now is vortices. So type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 till type 8. So type 1, as you can see, very brief, where you have only one canal. Type 2, at the beginning or in the kernel aspect, you have 2 canals, and by the time they reach apical third, you can only find one canal. So 2-1 configuration. In case of type 3, it is 1-2-1. So in case of type 4, it is 2, type 5, it's 1-2, type 6, 2-1-2, type 7, 1-2-1-2, type 8, 3. So you can divide it in a sequential way so that you can remember it easily. So first 3 types, if you closely observe, they end with single canal. So that's one hint you have, so that you can easily remember. So first 3 types, they end with single canal. And the next 4 types, that is 4, 5, 6, and 7, they end with 2 canals. and the final eighth type ends with 3 canones. Okay, so this is, you can consider this as a hint in order to easily remember various configurations given by vertices. And then we have Wien's configuration. So this is pretty easy to remember: 1 2 1 2 2 1 2. So just repeat these numbers, and I'm sure you're not going to forget them for your lifetime. 1 2 1 2 2 1. Right? So as you can see, 1 canal in case of type 1. In case of type 2, it's 2 1 configuration. Type 3, it's 2 2 configuration. Type 4, it's 1 2 configuration. 1 2 1 2 2 1. Okay. So this is some information regarding root canal configuration as mentioned in Grossman. Now let's move on to the next question. So this is something which we discussed right before the entrance exam, and it's only by chance that we get this kind of questions. So medication that reduces mortality rate of COVID-19 patients. So dexamethasone and its role in decreasing mortality we discussed elaborate in one of the previously conducted live sessions, if you remember. So dexamethasone is a corticosteroid used in a wide range of conditions for its anti-inflammatory and immunosuppressant effects. It was tested in hospitalized patients with COVID-19 in UK's national clinical trial called Recovery, and was found to have benefits for critically ill patients. According to preliminary findings shared with WHO, for patients on ventilators, the treatment was shown to reduce mortality by about 1/3, and for those patients requiring oxygen only, mortality was cut by about 1/5. Consider this very, very important. And also, I found some additional information in Lancet, right? So, Lancet Respiratory Medicine article, they have given some additional information regarding the dosages, which I'm sure will be helpful for you in the upcoming entrances. The impressive results of Recovery trial established that a moderate dose of dexamethasone, that is 6 milligrams daily for 10 days, reduced mortality in hospitalized patients with COVID-19 and respiratory failure who required therapy with supplemental oxygen or mechanical ventilation. The data also indicated that dexamethasone might increase mortality in hospitalized patients who were not receiving oxygen. So this is very interesting and surprising finding, right? So it's all the same, dexamethasone, but depending upon the patient's condition, the output is varying drastically, isn't it? So let's move on to our next question. So I hope it's clear regarding the role of dexamethasone. Rest of the drugs, in fact, ICMR and WHO have given clear-cut guidelines that the other drugs which were used, and even Trump has taken this hydrochloroquine and remdesivir, they are no longer recommended. There is not much benefit via those drugs. Okay. Now let's move on to our next question: blue pipe, OT. So these are some of the keywords which I received. So based on this, I've compiled the following information. So medical gases are used for patients' healthcare in different ways. In the early 1950s, healthcare providers recognized the hazards of using heavy, high-pressure cylinders of medical gases. Instead, medical gases and vacuum systems are provided by Medical Gases Pipeline System, that is MGPS. It is safe, permanent, and cost-effective mean of provision. In general, medical gases are specific gases that are separated from air individually for various medical applications. Commonly used medical gases in hospitals are oxygen, nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, medical vacuum, and medical air at different pressures like 400 kilopascals or 700 kilopascals. Now, if you look into oxygen, in fact, you can see at the bottom illustration, extreme left, oxygen is coded in white in color. Whereas nitrous oxide, the top illustration, you can see a blue pipe, right? So cylinders are coded with blue color as well as the pipelines. I hope it's clear. So oxygen, it's white in color. Nitrous oxide, it's blue in color. So blue pipe in OT carries nitrous oxide. Okay, now let's move on to our next question. So I got a keyword regarding pipettes. First of all, what's a pipette? So as you can see, pipette contains a narrow tube through which you can draw fluid, and then by releasing the top portion, you can retain that fluid. I'm sure you might have used the same during your first year, second year lab postings. So a small piece of apparatus which typically consists of narrow tube into which fluid is drawn by suction and retained by closing the upper end. And the one which you are seeing now is Pasteur pipette. So Pasteur pipettes, also known as droppers or eyedroppers, are laboratory liquid handling tools that are used to transfer small quantities of liquids. They are either made of glass or plastic. And these Pasteur pipettes are commonplace in labs around the world. Now let's move on to the next illustration, another type of pipette, Westergrens pipette. So Westergrens pipette is available in a variety of sizes, tip shapes and bulb amounts. These Westergrens pipettes could be used in many biology, microbiology and medical applications as they are non-toxic and inert to most biological fluids and features a low affinity surface which reduces loss of cells and proteins. And then in the next illustration, you can find Salis or hemoglobin pipette. The Salis or hemoglobin pipette, as you can find a marking, the marking is at 20 microliters or 0.02 ml, and characteristically, you don't find a bulb. And regarding the specific use of these pipettes relevant to us, I found some additional information. Westergrens pipette, which you can see now, this is used for evaluating ESR. So Winthrop's tube, which employs Pasteur pipette, is used for evaluating ESR as well as packed cell volume. Right? So this is some additional information. I hope it's useful. So Westergrens tube used for determining ESR, Winthrop's tube used for determining ESR and PCV. Okay. Now let's move on to our next question. So next time we should be able to identify those pipettes as well. Identify this instrument. So this represents distal end cutter. So this distal end cutter is used for cutting the extended wire, as you can see in this specific illustration. Distal end cutters can easily cut and hold wires of all sizes ranging from 0.3 mm to 0.53 mm. Okay. And also you can find some additional instruments which I have placed, and with the hope that you could identify them if at all they are given in the upcoming entrances. So first one from left, bracket adjusting or placing tweezer. Second one from left, bracket holding tweezer. Third one from left, bracket placing tweezer. Second one from right, bracket height gauge. And the extreme right is needle holder. Matthew, a needle holder. Okay? Right. So these are some of the topics which I wanted to highlight in this specific video. And if you need any further information or any further assistance, you can always get back through mail 24/7 at proudtobedentist@gmail.com. And regarding these topics in specific, if you need any additional information, do let me know in the comments below. I'll update relevant information in the description part of the video, and please give me at least 24 to 48 hours. Right? I hope this video is useful, and we'll be uploading the next videos in this series as soon as possible. So wish you all the best. Love you all.